Hello and welcome to me doing a time-lapse type thing for Planet Coaster. Oh yes, I'm doing a video. Yes, this is the first one I've done, so please be gentle with me. Yeah, anyway, moving on. First, I'm starting in the sandbox mode, just basically figuring out what I'm doing, and eventually I'm going to hopefully have quite a nice park to show you. So I'm doing landscaping in this video. At the moment, I've basically just lowered a bit of the land, and I'm using the flatten to foundation tool to just carve out different bits. I was initially going to do a lake and then a mountain, and then I realised, oh hold on, the actual area we have is much bigger than it was back in the alpha, so I've extended it back all the way to here, and the mountain that is going to have my castle on, at least that's the theory, is the hill that was in the background just kind of chopped in half with a mountain on top that I'm working on now. So here we go. It took me a little while to get the top of this the way I want, and I'm still not fantastically happy. I'm basically just going to go back over all of this about 1,000 times, and you're going to watch it at high speed because watching it at normal speed would bore you to tears, I'm sure. So then I noticed that this mountain over here to the left was, well, not really blended in very well with the rest of it, so I just decided to just blend things in a bit better, add a little bit more, a few more hills, just make it so that everything blends in. And then I decided, right, here's where a big hole is going to be. Now, just a little bit of extra information. This is the jungle biome. There's a very good reason why I picked the tropical biome, but I'll leave that as a bit of a surprise. Here I am carving out a big hole, and there's a very good purpose for this big hole, and there's a reason why it had to be so deep, and that'll become clear anyway. So I'm carving out the big hole using flatten to foundation, and now I'm just smoothing it out a bit, and now I decided this big hill over here could really do with having a big chunk taken out the side. I've decided more or less where each themed area in this park is going to go, because it's going to be split up into several different themed areas. This area here is going to be my, well, a kind of pirate cove. Pirates, I know, are something that's probably done to death in Planet Coaster, so I'm in part because it was the only theme we had for a while, so I'm going to try and make it more of a Caribbean-inspired style area rather than just going on with just the regular theming. Now I was more or less done with the flattened foundation tool. I'm now using the flattened surface tool to kind of get the surfaces, the edges of the hills a bit smoother, a bit closer to what I actually have in mind, and smoothing everything out an awful lot, because if you use the flattened foundation tool, it carves away the or builds up areas quite quickly, but you wind up with a vaguely Minecraft-ish look where everything's all made out of voxels. So you have to smooth it all out, and here I am just kind of working on the big hill at the back, making the cliffs a bit nicer. Now there's some trees there that you can't remove. I assume that's a bug. I'll go back to that later. Now here I am in my big hole. Just spotted a couple of bits of floating scenery that I had to get rid of. I'm just making this into a nice arched column, and I'm just going around smoothing out the edges and then fiddling with the day, the time of day, so I can hopefully see a bit better, because the contrast when you get into holes like this is very, very severe. Now here I am just going around roughening everything up, and this is like the third pass. I've gone over everything. So I started with flattening to foundation, then I went through flattening to surface and smoothing, and now I'm just roughening everything up in the end. And at that point I thought I'd spotted the shadow of a few bits of floating ground, but it was actually the shadow of some pigeons. Yes. And this bit that will be a path leading down here, I'm probably going to redo that again. But now here I am, more or less moving on from my large landscaping into the landscaping of this area in this canyon down here. And I just build a hole, dig a little bit of a hole in there, and then flatten it out to foundation, and then do the same again. Draw kind of a compass point directions over the top of the hole, over the top of the hill, and then put a little hole in there. So yeah, if you haven't worked out what I'm doing, I'm making craters. Why am I making craters? Well, it's the same reason I had to pick the tropical biome, because basically the only way of actually achieving what I'm doing with this area is to use the right, well, the texture painting to make it look like it's the surface of the moon. That's the idea. The problem is the specific textures are only available when you pick the tropical biome. So I picked this part of the park because it was the only area where I could dig a hole that wasn't obscenely deep and make it so that the rest of the park is not going to be visible, and you're not going to have, you know, a massive hill in taking over the horizon. So then I painted it all with sand, and now I'm going over painting the canyon walls with rocky bits, and I'm going to repaint this. You'll notice me coming back to this several times during this video, just going over, repainting a bit more, smoothing, fiddling about. So now I picked one of the clay textures and just paint around the essentially where the craters aren't, and then I fill it in with a very, very soft brush, very not particularly intense brush on one of the other sand textures to just fill it in. So the idea is when you're down there, hopefully you should feel more or less like you're on the moon. And now I'm working on what will be my little pirate cove, filled with water. Oops, a bit leaked out. There we go. And then I just paint around the water. One of the things that I think people miss in Planet Coaster is if you just fill an area with water, you don't get the proper texturing of the land under the water. So you have to remember to paint around that. And now here is where my stinking big lake in the middle of my park will be. You're going to walk in, head down this hill, and then there'll be this massive lake here with a nice crescent moon shaped island in there. And I'm just playing around with which type of water to get. Okay, and now I'm painting around this lake, fiddling about a bit, getting the different textures. And one of the things with the texture painting on here in Planet Coaster is really you get the best results if you use lots of textures overlaid with different intensities, rather than just saying, oh, this bit's all rocky, this bit's all grassy. And you can actually do some quite nice shading of your grass by just overlaying a little bit of rock on top of that. So that's what I'm doing here, just painting around. And you can probably see I've got a bit of a monorail going on, but I'll deal with that in a separate video that I'll post later.